Hi, my name is Dave Reski, CEO of Now Speed Marketing, and welcome to this edition of Marketing in the Now, where we focus on uncovering the myths of marketing and leadership with some of the world's most interesting people. And my guest today is Larissa Bedgood, the head of marketing at Porch Media Group. She's a marketing professional with more than 25 years of experience in omnichannel and performance marketing. Larissa, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, David. I'm really excited to be talking to you today. I have some great things that I want to share with you and your audience. So let's do it.
All right. Hey, before we get into the topic, I see you went to Michigan State and graduated
I
magna cum
did.
laude. Wow, you're smart.
Yes. Yes. So right now I'm in Florida. I've been in Florida for, oh my gosh, going to age myself for a good 30 years now. But yeah, I grew up in the Midwest, went to Michigan State University, go Spartans, and missed the snow and the seasons, but I got a pool, so I think I'm good.
You might be ahead. I went to Ohio State, so I don't know if it's me, but I cringe still after many years every time I hear the word Michigan. I know you're not University of
Yeah.
Michigan, but do you have the feeling about Ohio, or is it just me?
Um, well, my dad was very into after I graduated, it's like, oh, your alma mater, I think they're beating Ohio, or I don't know what it was, but I'm like, okay. Or maybe it was the other way around and I'm remembering it differently.
Those school rivalries stay with us for a long time. But
Yeah,
anyway,
you're right.
on to marketing. We've been talking about this marketing issue about executives and
Mhm.
influencers. And the issue I
Yeah.
want to explore with you today is how should executives be part of their brands? And what if executives saw themselves as influencers? What do you think? Should executives
Yeah.
be influencers for the brand?
Oh, I so support this. One of the reasons, so I started building out my personal brand as the head of marketing. I started building out my personal brand probably 4 or 5 months ago on LinkedIn. Um, this was after somebody in my company kind of was just like, you need to be there. I'm like, I on LinkedIn, I every now and then I'll share a post and I have my resume there. Like, what do you mean be on LinkedIn? So from there, this whole idea of personal branding really exploded for me. And I started looking at, for example, Bill Gates. Bill Gates, I actually wrote that down. I think he has something like 35 million followers, where he's the personal brand, whereas Mike, well, part of Microsoft, now he's moving on, but and then Microsoft has 20 million followers. And so many big people, big leaders, it's not just big leaders, but I'm just pointing to these examples that we know have tons of followers while the company does not have as many. And that's because people follow people. Today, we see, I come from a B2B marketing background. So we see, for example, the B2B buying committee changing, where there is more millennials involved. There are more Gen Z, and these two generations have grown up with digital and social. So they're not going to follow as, or I should say, they're not going to be as influenced by ads or by a brand, a static brand. They want relationships. They want to engage with people. And the whole concept of the personal brand is just skyrocketing. And then from there, it's influencer marketing and all the good things that come from it. But yeah, I've had immense success just in the few months that I've been on LinkedIn.
Yeah, it's a powerful concept. And I think about, my own experience. My personal followers on LinkedIn are about twice my company's. So it's the
Right.
same thing where people, I think you're onto something where people want to follow the person rather than the brand, or maybe in addition to, or sometimes they want the
Right.
brand. It's not, they never want to follow the brand. It depends on the content. But this idea of the executive as influencer is interesting. I remember a classic business book, Good to Great by Jim Collins,
Hmm.
in which many of us have read. He talks about this idea of an executive either being a time teller or a clock builder. And so, the
Ah,
time teller is the person in the public square who announces the time, and that's kind of a medieval concept before clocks. The
yeah.
clock builder is the one who's building the system. And I think out of that, all executives wanted to be clock builders because that's scalable. Nobody wants to be the time teller, right? So you
Hmm.
have that person. So he kind of gave credence to this idea that we could be clock builders. But in the modern world, maybe that's not true anymore. Maybe executives need to embrace both, be the clock builder and the time teller. Maybe it's not an
Yeah,
either or. What do you think about that as an
I
idea?
I really, really like that. I know that just talking about the influencer angle, well, when I've been putting out content, I put out content related to marketing, and also I share personal aspects of my belief, just my personal storytelling. That's what a personal brand is. Um, but I have had other companies reach out to me to be an influencer for their products. Like, hey,
Hmm.
would you, sponsor these posts? Um, we think you're a great influencer. You're connected with their ICP. I have not done that yet, but they're they're onto something. I'm connected with who their ICP is, and so I'm very excited to see how this all opens up, and just developing systems, as a thought leader. I'm going to build my clock. What do I want to say? What is my personal point of view? But let me also, share what I relate to, what is in line with my values, what products do I see out there that I can really get behind. And if there's something that I really see that I can get behind, absolutely I will promote it, because that aligns with my values. So I think that's the way to go.
There's so many implications of this. And one of the things I was thinking about is kind of the difference between small company owners or leaders, like maybe
Mm-hmm.
we are, and big company executives. Like if you're a senior vice president at General Motors or at GE or at
Mm-hmm.
Tesla, what freedom or latitude should you have, or to be an influencer for that brand, and how should that work? Should those people at big companies also be thinking about being influencers for their brands, or is
Oh,
this
yeah.
really for us small company people to be thinking about?
No, I think that so many of us can relate to the smaller tier. If you're a senior vice president for Tesla, I mean, cool. Like, let's talk. But but that it's for everyone, and I see some amazing personal brands out there with big companies, and some of their folks talking. And I think too the general consensus at times is that some brands feel a little bit threatened if their employees are like, wait a minute, you're also doing your own branding thing. For me, I mean, I just noticed, the time that I've been on LinkedIn, that my website traffic has, for my website, it's Porch Group Media is the company I'm with, has gone up with the referral being LinkedIn. So when you have employees that are developing their personal brands, that's a one-to-one almost relationship with, the positive goodwill that's being transferred to the brand as a whole. So absolutely. I mean, this is relevant for, the smallest of the small to the hugest of the huge.
So that's helpful. So let's talk about this concept of being an influencer, because a lot of people want to build their personal brand, and that has to do with maybe you build out your LinkedIn profile, maybe you're on
Mm-hmm.
Twitter X, you've got, your professional version on maybe on Instagram or other channels that you got, but today it's mainly maybe on LinkedIn. So you're building your
Right.
personal brand there, and but there's a difference between doing that and actually being an influencer. And
Yes.
how do you distinguish the two? And when do you cross over from being a
Right.
building out your personal brand and posting some nice things and actually
Yeah.
being an influencer?
Yeah, so I'll give you just a little bit of background on my journey. So when I started posting, I wasn't quite sure what my end result was. What did I want to achieve? Did I want to drive leads for my company? Did I want to share my personal views on things? So it's really when you start, kind of define, what is your why? Why are you here? And it's okay if it changes. Mine evolved, but you need to start somewhere. And it was a little scary too. If you're not used to doing that, just put out your first post, and it takes time to build out a brand. Be willing to put in the time. But the first 3 or 4 months, you're not going to be an influencer. You've got to establish your personal brand voice. What is the content that you're putting out? And by doing that, you're going to attract followers that resonate with you. You'll have a following that understands that their values align with yours. So in those first few months, it's all about building up a community. Um, and then, once you build up a community and kind of, a little bit more established, you have people that follow you, then the natural progression is you can start doing a little bit more, become more of an influencer. For me, I have not actively pursued anything, but I've had people come to me, and just by me being out there and being connected with so many different people, they have like, you know what, I see that you're connected with so many people that I want to sell to. I would love to show you my product. And if it's something that you like, then, they will pay you for promoting it. Um, for me personally, it needs to really be in alignment. I have to love the product. Um, I want to be able to promote products that bring value to me because I've worked so hard on establishing trust with my following. I don't want to just chase money, as it's always fun, but I want to keep my the trust that I built up. I mean, I really worked hard with it. That's where my why is. So it's then as opportunities come to you, is choosing what works for you and what you can get behind. But yeah, I'm all for it. The right uh, uh, opportunity comes along. I think that's a fabulous way to do that.
So it seems like, if you're an executive for a larger company, you're probably not going to be an influencer for other brands, right? You're going to be an influencer for
Right.
his own brand, and that's is probably well. We can talk about some ways to do that. Um, but it strikes me that based on what you said, there might be an intermediate step that people need to be thinking about because I imagine it's intimidating for executives to go for, hey, yeah, I've built my personal brand on LinkedIn. It looks pretty good, and now I'm going to go to be an influencer, and I'm going to have thousands of
Right.
followers. And there might be an intermediate step. What do you think about the step of like becoming an advocate rather than influencer? Like
That's
you,
interesting.
you start to like share your company's content. You start to share, stories or experiences about what you're doing. You're kind of an advocate, but you're not necessarily an influencer yet.
Yeah,
Is
that's
that a
a
way to think about the step?
really, yeah, I love that, David. I think that yeah, that's this whole middle area that I'm actually trying to work on within my company, is to encourage our employees to one, build up their personal brands, um, and then have a point of view. Like, don't just press repost, share your personal thoughts and your point of view on some of what you're saying. Share personal pictures of volunteering. All those types of things can then start influencing how people see your brand. You share pictures of volunteering, and then they know you're connected with, in my case, Porch Group Media. Like, okay, so Porch Group Media really values giving back to the community. That's a great way to influence your brand's image. Maybe we have employees that are, whatever it is, but it can positively, give that back to your brand. So that's a absolutely terrific point that you made.
Yeah, you're building your brand, you're advocating for your company, then you kind of grow your following. Now you're an influencers through all that. So what's the different types of content that you could be sharing along the way? You talked about, personal stories or, getting
Right.
back, but how should executives be thinking about content sharing? Should it just be like, repost the company blog? Should it be creating their own content? Should they be investing time every day in writing their own content? How do you create content and what types of content are best for moving on that journey to become
Yeah. First of all, let me just give a quick plug to there's an amazing community of branding experts for executives on LinkedIn.
Hmm.
So if you are do not have I don't do it personally, but if you do not have time, there's always, just hang out on LinkedIn for a little bit and you'll see people that are, great at helping executives build out their brand. Um, but for me, I share um, a lot of short form types of content. So not huge stories, but kind of thoughts and tips and tricks. Oh, to see the one I did today, actually one today I did was more of a personal viewpoint on don't just chase followers, that's external validation and, a little bit more of a mindfulness. So that was a very personal viewpoint for me. And then it translated to, me being an authentic person. And, so that's who I am. And that's part of what I want my company to be is, very authentic. But there's a lot of people, video is an exceptional means to get out content, even from our podcast, I'm sure you do that all the time, like 90-second clips. Those perform fabulously. Carousels, static images, polls, how you set up your day for success. Here's something great that my company is doing. There's so many amazing things. Books I read. I just did a post yesterday on the top books I read, and it got a lot of engagement. So there is no shortage of content. Just start kind of playing on LinkedIn. You're like, you'll get inspired.
So an executive that wants to build out their brand and become an influencer, they need to be thinking about these different content types, these different stories, and start to invest the time in creating that content. Now, if you're maybe a mid-level executive, you're going to be doing all this on your own. But if you're a senior
Right.
executive, let's say you're, a senior vice president at, a Fortune 100 company, you might have a team of people supporting you, right? So then you might be, like I think of the Bill Gates example you used. He's not shooting his own video,
Right,
not doing
right.
his own posting, right? He's got a whole team, most likely,
I'd
that's
like to
doing
see
all that.
it, but yeah.
Yeah, and he produces great stuff, but he's just got a
Yeah.
camera crew that follows him all
Right.
around his journeys around the world. So, what should senior executives at large companies be thinking about when they create content? Should they be, thinking about getting the film crew, getting some writers, doing the social media team, getting all that,
Yeah.
or is it okay just to do a few posts, every once in a while? How how,
It,
how aggressive do you think
um,
they should be?
yeah, no, that's a great question. It's something that I've kind of grappled with a little bit as I've tried to establish a schedule. So our CEO at my company, she's really keen on building out her personal brand. And so she's starting out with, I told her, give me a book that you've read and 5 bullets. Me being her in marketing, I can then translate more quickly than she can into a post. So we kind of work in tandem. So right now she's doing 2 times a week, and she shares like how she sets up her day for success. I tell her when she's out at a conference, send me any pictures that you have at a conference, I'll post them. If she is at a big leadership meeting, send pictures. So people love to see the behind the scenes. I think that is an exceptional way to start is just sharing the behind the scenes as an executive of how you set your day up for success. What does it look like when you go to a conference? What books are you reading? And then just start off a couple times a week. That's plenty. I think one thing that's key to remember is being consistent. So maybe you do it Tuesdays and Thursdays. And then as you get comments, just make sure you respond to them. Those are the two things that I would suggest to start off with. If somebody's going to take time to engage with you, just make sure you comment back. I think that's important.
So consistency comments, and then I'll take your other comment and add another C, which might be collaborators. So
Yeah.
you're a collaborator with your CEO, helping her think about like topics, ideas, because one of the challenges of being an executive is you've got a lot of responsibilities and a lot of demands on your time. And
Right.
to ask each of them to say, and we want you to carve out a few hours
Right.
every week to write long form articles and shoot video and do some, photos for your LinkedIn posts. It's difficult for them. So having collaborators, whether it's an agency or someone internal in
Mhm.
marketing, is something that can be really helpful. But you got to have the right style, the right level of interaction to really make that happen. Yeah,
Yes.
yeah. So
Yeah.
it sounds like you're
Yeah.
doing that well for your CEO.
Yeah, yeah. And I because I love it, it was just such a natural fit for me. But I even in my own like some things I have people in my company is like, hey, you're great at editing. Can you give me an hour a week and just edit some things? So there's probably people that can do various parts. You don't necessarily need to have somebody do every single part. It's great if you can, but just, ways to think a little bit more creatively. Maybe you are great at writing yourself, but you need somebody to just design some pictures for your post. Maybe you hire a graphic designer to do 10 graphics a month for you. So there's ways that you can kind of cut corners because exactly it is a little bit of a commitment, or a lot of commitment depending how often you want to post, but it's worth it.
So the idea of executives becoming influencers, what are things that many of them may be afraid that they're going to do something wrong, right? So
Yeah.
what are things that they should think about avoiding doing? Like what are the mistakes that they should really look out for in this
Yeah.
world?
Um, I think that the biggest way I learned was just observing what other people are doing, just to kind of know, not saying that, you have to be like everyone else and you need to copy what everybody else is doing, but like when you're going into a new to a conference or to a restaurant, you want to get a lay of the land. Excuse me. Um, so take the time just to kind of observe what others are doing. Um, and for me as well, I stay true to myself. I don't spew negativity. If it's not something I want to that's going to make somebody uncomfortable, I don't say it. Not saying that you can't have a differing viewpoint or having a unique point of view. But I just, be a little bit more cognizant, especially at the beginning, and how your how your content is being engaged with. Always start with something don't try to force anything, and just start small and observe and go from there.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I think what you said about having a role model is really helpful. Seeing how other people do it, following someone that you like, emulating some
Yeah.
of the things they're doing makes it a lot easier to kind of follow in their footsteps. I just wonder if like almost like groups of executives at large companies will start to do that. I haven't seen that yet, but it's almost like here's the
Yeah.
C-suite, not just the CEO perhaps being the star,
Mhm.
but maybe the C-suite or maybe the heads of divisions becoming like a
Yes.
group within companies, like all together advocating or sharing content on a position. I really haven't seen that yet. I tend to see maybe the CEO being the star, but I would be interested. It'd be interesting to kind of see them working together in a more coordinated fashion. I don't know.
Yeah.
Have you seen that yet, or is it just kind of the individual?
You know what, David? I have not. I love that. I think we will see more of a push that way as people realize the importance of the personal brand and just the need to be social today. Especially, when you think of like the influx of AI, even there's so much non-human stuff out there that that the backlash is that we're going to need more personal brands, and I think that is going to then trickle down to more groups within a company realizing that, okay, these are big benefits that I'm gaining from being out there, spending a little extra time to build up a network and connections. So yeah, I'd be interested to see that, though. I think that's a really cool thought.
Yeah, and that's a really important point about AI. It's so funny. I mean, social media has been around with us for 15 years, right? So this idea of, being social online for your building your personal brand is not new, but I think the idea of kind of becoming an influencer in the age of AI is very new because, like you're saying, the a lot of the content out there is becoming a little generic because of AI, and
Hmm.
people are learning from that content. It's not bad to have that content, but it's much more interesting and relatable to connect with a person and the brand.
Right.
That's what's going to be that it sounds like that's what you're saying is the powerful big idea that we all need to be embracing in a different way.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that's a whole nother conversation, but very exciting to see as well.
Yeah. So it sounds like the takeaway here is executives should be thinking about themselves as building their personal brand, becoming advocates, and then becoming influencers, and really go all in, right? So
Yeah, yeah, you guys, you will be surprised at how what an amazing experience it can be. Wish I started earlier, but I'm glad I'm there now.
you're on your journey. Well, Larissa, thank you for taking the time to talk about this conversation. If people want to connect with you or your agency, learn more about your services, what's the best way to do that?
Yeah, so I am on LinkedIn. It's Larissa Bedgood, Larissa, and my last name is Bedgood. I'm sure David will have that in the podcast title somewhere. But yeah, look me up on LinkedIn. Would love to connect and send me a DM and we can chat.
Great. Thanks for taking the time today.
Yes, thank you so much, David. Appreciate it.